With AI becoming more publicly available and because it's all the hype nowadays, I thought it would be an awesome opportunity to create a SOC related project that incorporates AI into our workflow. This way, you will have a relevant and modern project to showcase on your portfolio and even on your resume. But before we dive in, if this is your first time seeing one of my videos, hello, my name is Steven, and I've been working in cybersecurity for almost a decade, mainly within the security operations domain. On this channel, you will find videos about career guidance, lab walkthroughs, and SOC-related projects like this one that you can tackle and put onto your portfolio. In my previous project videos, I broke everything down into multiple shorter videos, but this time around, I'm going to do things a little differently, and I'll make one long video. I'll include the timestamps so you can jump forward if you like. Now, let's talk about the objective for this particular project. The main goal is to build an automated workflow using N8N. We'll spin up Splunk as our SIM, create a Windows 10 virtual machine, ingest logs into our Splunk, and create an alert, then send it over to N8N. From there, we'll leverage ChatGPT to process the alert and output all of the information into Slack, where an analyst can act on it accordingly. But do note that you will need to purchase API credits for ChatGPT to make this project work. This setup will be primarily on-prem, so if you have at least 32 gigs of RAM, you should be okay. But if you have 16 or under, you might have some problems down the road. Do also keep in mind that this project is for learning and portfolio purposes only. You don't want to put this into production because we are feeding data into AI and that introduces privacy risks. Maybe in the future, depending on demand, I'll showcase how to use a local LLM, but for now, we'll just stick with ChatGPT and maybe even Claude AI. If you are a member of the MyDFIR SOC community, I've uploaded 3 bonus sections inside of the project's classroom, and this will walk you through on how to integrate a ticketing system using DFIR Iris, enriching file hashes with VirusTotal, and connecting to an MCP server so our AI can query data directly from our SIM and help identify threats. But even if you're not part of the community, completing this project without the extra stuff is still going to be a big game changer and highly attractive. However, if you are interested and you do want to learn more about the community, you can head over to school.com/mydfir or click the link in the description down below. With that being said, let's start by downloading and installing VMware, Windows 10, Splunk, and Kali. Let's get started. All right, to begin with our project here, the first thing you want to do is head over to broadcom.com because we are going to be using VMware for this particular project. Now, you can go ahead and use VirtualBox if you like, or whichever hypervisor you want. But in this case, I am going to be using VMware. And this is how you download VMware onto your computer. When you're over on broadcom.com, you want to go ahead and select Support Portal and then click on Register. Go ahead and register your account. And then once you finish registering, you can then log in. One thing to keep in mind is that if you happen to be on a VPN and you try to sign in, you might get a permission denied. So if that happens, make sure you disconnect from your VPN and then sign in. Once you've logged in, you want to head over to My Downloads and then click on Here. Scroll all the way down and select VMware Workstation Pro. And then select Windows because that is the operating system that I am currently using. And then go ahead and select the version that you want. From there, click into the terms and conditions and then check it off. Finally, over to the right, you want to click on this download button here. Now it does say, hey, prior to downloading this file, additional verification is required. So go ahead and click on yes, and then follow the process until you are able to download the file. Now I already have VMware installed onto my laptop, and just for reference here, these are the specifications for this particular laptop that I will be using for this project. And I'll open up a notepad because what I want to do here is note down what kind of VMs do I want to create. So first and foremost, I want to create a Windows 10 VM, Splunk VM. We are going to download Kali. There is going to be a dedicated N8N instance or /VM. And if you are part of the MyDFIR SOC community, we are going to also build another VM specifically for DFIR Iris. This is going to be our case management. So why don't we start building our Windows 10, Splunk, Kali and N8N. To download our Windows 10 ISO image, you simply want to search up Windows 10 ISO on Google, and then click on the link for Microsoft. I will also put this down below as well. From here, you want to scroll down and just select the Create Windows 10 Installation Media. I'll click on Download Now, and I'll save it into our downloads. Go ahead and click on it, click on Accept, and we'll select Create Installation Media. Then Next, Next, and ISO file. This one right here. Next, and I'll save this under our downloads. This is going to take a bit of time, so go ahead and grab some water and come back. Actually, now that I think about it, while we wait for this to download, let's go ahead and download our Ubuntu server ISO image and also Kali. I'll open up a new tab and then I'll type in Ubuntu. From here, I'll go into Products and select Ubuntu Server. Click on Download Ubuntu Server. And right now, the version that I will be downloading is 24.04. Click on Download, and I'll save it into our Downloads folder. Now let's go and download our Kali virtual machine. I'll type in Kali, click into kali.org, and select Download. Now we are using VMware, so I will select Virtual Machines here. And under VMware, I'll click on this Download button. Save that into my downloads. Do note that it does have a file extension of 7Z. In other words, you need to have 7-zip installed onto your machine in order to extract it. And if you don't have that, all you got to do is just search up 7-zip, go into 7-zip.org, and then click on download here. So let me go ahead and just close out these tabs, and I'll check on my Windows 10 progress. So we do have it at 76%. All right. Well, we'll just wait a bit more and then come back when it's done. Perfect. So eventually you will see the screen here. And once you do, we can just click on Finish. And I'll open up my VMware and I'll click on Create a New Virtual Machine. From here, we can go ahead and select Custom, Next, Next. And for the installer disk image, you want to click on Browse and then look for our Windows ISO image, which is right here under our Downloads folder. Click on Open, Next. I'll name this MyDFIR Windows 10. Click on Next. For the number of processors, I'll just leave it as 2 for now. And for the memory, let's just bump this up to 4 gigs, just like that. Click on Next. NAT is okay for now. Next, Next. Create a new disk. Next, and Finish. Sweet. Now we'll just go ahead and click on any button. And while this is doing its thing, let's take a look at our Ubuntu download. So it seems that we do have a couple seconds left. Now that my Ubuntu server ISO image is completed, let's go and create that one. Similar to what I did earlier with our Windows 10 virtual machine, just gonna click on Next, click Browse, and look for our Ubuntu. For this one, I'll name it as MyDFIR-Splunk. 2 cores is okay. I am going to bring this one up to 8 gigs. NAT is fine. Next, Next, Next. For the disk space, I am going to put 100 gigs because if you put anything under 100, you might have some problems later on. Next, and Finish. Go back over to my home, click on Create a New Virtual Machine, and let's do another one for N8N. So I am going to use the same Ubuntu 24.04. This one I'll type in MyDFIR-N8N-VM. 2 cores is fine, and 4 gigs is fine as well. Next, Next, Next. For the disk space, let's just put 50 for now and Finish. Finally, let's take a look at our Kali virtual machine. So over to my downloads folder, I do see it as 7Z. And if you do have 7-zip installed, you can right click, head over to 7-zip and extract to this particular directory. While that is extracting, we'll go ahead and create another virtual machine, this time for our MyDFIR Iris. And again, this is for the folks over in the community. So we'll use the Ubuntu, the same thing, and I'll type in MyDFIR-DFIR-Iris. We'll put in VM as well. 2 processors is fine. This one I'll put it as 8 gigs. Now you can put 4, but I'm just going to put it as 8. Next, Next, Next. For the disk space, I am going to put 50, and let's click on Finish. Perfect. Now that our Kali Linux is extracted, all we need to do is just go into that directory and then double click on this file, the one that has a .vmx file extension. Now, if you don't see a file extension, all you need to do is click on View and select File Name Extensions. So maybe it looks like this for you, but if you click on File Name Extensions, you can then see the file name extension. So again, double click the .vmx file. And what that will do is automatically import it into our VMware workstation. Over to the left-hand side, 2 gigs of memory is kind of low, so I am going to change this into, let's say, 4 gigs. For the processors and network adapter, I'll just leave it as is for now. Let's go back over to our Windows 10 machine here, and we'll go through the process. Click on Next, Install Now. Click on I don't have a product key. And the one that we want to install is Windows 10 Pro. Click on I accept the license. Next. From here, you want to select Custom, Next, and this is going to take a bit. So while this is running, let's head over to our Ubuntu virtual machine, and we'll get this one set up. So English is fine. Done, 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 done. Next, next, next. And for the entire disk, yeah, we'll go ahead and use all of that. So click on Done here. Done. Continue. Finally, we get our name. I'll just type in MyDFIR. The server name is going to be MyDFIR-Splunk. The username is MyDFIR, and then choose a password and click on Done. For the Install OpenSSH server, I am actually going to hit space to install OpenSSH. That way I can SSH in to my virtual machine from my host machine. Click on Done, and then let's do the same for our 2 additional virtual machines. On my N8N virtual machine, this is going to be called MyDFIR-N8N, MyDFIR, type in your password. Again, install OpenSSH and done. And we'll do the same for DFIR Iris. I'll name this as MyDFIR-Iris. There you go. Let's go back over to our Windows 10 here, and that's getting ready. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and click on yes, yes, skip. While Windows is getting everything set up, let's go over to our Splunk virtual machine here, and we do see an option to reboot now. That tells me everything is good to go, and ooh, I see a failed, but that is okay. We can just go ahead and press enter, and it will just reboot the virtual machine. All right, now let's sign in using our username, and I am going to type in IP space A. The reason why I'm doing this is to take a look at what the IP address of my Splunk virtual machine is, which in my case is 192.168.136.138. Now, of course, you can go ahead and look at the top here, and it'll tell you the same information, but it's always good to know that IP space A works as well. So now that I have the IP address for my Splunk virtual machine, I can then open up PowerShell on my host machine, so on my Windows laptop. And from here, because I have OpenSSH server installed, I can now SSH from my host laptop into that virtual machine. And to do this, I'll type in SSH, type in the username, which is MyDFIR @ and then we'll type in the IP address that we just obtained, which was 192.168.136.138. And then it'll say, are you sure you want to continue? Yes, I do. And then it'll ask for your password. So I'll go ahead and type in the password. And if you don't see anything when you type in your password, that is okay. That is completely intentional. Go ahead and sign in. And there you go. We are now inside of our Splunk virtual machine. I'll go ahead and clear up the screen. And the first thing we want to do here is type in sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get upgrade-y. Type in your password and let Ubuntu go out and do its thing. Let's head back over to our VMware workstation, take a look at our Windows 10 here. And I am going to select Setup for Personal Use. Click on Next. We'll select Offline Account. Limited experience is okay. For the name, I'll type in MyDFIR. For the password, go ahead and type that in. And then fill in your security questions. Click on Not Now and Accept. Skip, Not Now. And finally, we should be good to go. I am going to take a look at our other Ubuntu servers. So N8N. We still see that it's doing its thing. Okay. And DFIR Iris as well. Okay, finally, we now have our desktop. Go ahead and exit that out. And now let's go ahead and click on this Start button. And I'll type in Remote. And what we want to select here is the Remote Desktop Settings. Currently, it is set to off by default. We'll go ahead and enable it. And similar to what we did for our Splunk virtual machine, I'll type in CMD to open up a command prompt. And then I'll type in ipconfig. So this is our IP of our Windows 10 virtual machine. And you know what? I'll go ahead and copy that, open up my notepad here, and then I'll just paste that in here. Or actually, my copy and paste does not work. So instead, I'll just type it in 136.141. And for our Splunk IP, this was 192.168.136. And what was it again? This was 138. 138. Now that we have our remote desktop enabled, rather than working directly within this virtual machine, I can now RDP in to our virtual machine and then start working from there. Now, honestly, it is just personal preference on how you want to work within your virtual machine. If you want to do it via VMware, by all means, go for it. But I find it easier if I just RDP directly from my host machine into my virtual machine. So that is what I'll do. I'll open up a remote desktop connection by clicking on the start menu and searching up remote desktop. Type in my IP address, which again is 192.168.136.141. Click on connect, and then it'll ask me for my username and password. I'm going to type in MyDFIR and type in the password. Click on yes, and now a remote desktop session is opened, and I can work directly from here. Now that my Windows 10 virtual machine is up and running, I am going to create a snapshot. To do this, you want to make sure that you select your Windows virtual machine, click on VM, and then select Snapshot. Click on Take Snapshot, and then I'll say Base VM. While that's doing its thing, let's go back over to our Splunk virtual machine. And this is the PowerShell SSH session that I created earlier. Now that our update and upgrade is completed, clear out the screen here. The next thing we want to do is download and install Splunk. On my host machine, I am going to open up a new tab and I'll search up Splunk. Scrolling down here, we want to go over to splunk.com and then create an account if you haven't done so already, because you do need an account in order to download and install Splunk. Do make sure that if you are using a VPN, disconnect from it, because Splunk is known to block any kind of VPN usage. So if you get like a permission denied or something like that, then go ahead and disconnect your VPN and then register for an account. Once you have signed in with your account, you want to head over to Platform, click on Free Trials and Downloads, go ahead and scroll down, and under Splunk Enterprise, you want to click on Start Trial. Then we want to select Linux. And as an FYI, as of recording, the version that I'll be using is 10. And from here, you want to select the copy wget link for the .deb file. And after we copy that, go back over to your PowerShell session and then paste that in. This will go out and download Splunk. While that is downloading, let's take a look at our N8N virtual machine. That is this one right here. And we do see a reboot now. Perfect. We are going to get the same failed error saying that, hey, it failed to unmount. That is okay. Go ahead and hit enter. And we'll likely see the same thing for our MyDFIR Iris. Heading back over to my N8N virtual machine, it's asking me to log in. So go ahead and do that. And let's take note of the IP address. This one ends in .139. So it is 192.168.136.139. And similar to what we did to our Splunk virtual machine, I'll type in sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get upgrade-y. Type in the password and off we go. Let's do the same for the MyDFIR Iris virtual machine here. Log in, take note of the IP. This one ends in .140. 192.140. Sudo apt-get update upgrade-y. While our virtual machines are updating and upgrading its repositories, let's go back into our PowerShell session for our Splunk virtual machine. And we can see that Splunk has finished downloading. Just to make sure, I'll just type in ll, and we can see that right here. Beautiful. To install this, all we need to do is type in sudo dpkg-i and then point it over to our Splunk file. So I'll just type in Splunk and hit tab for auto completion and then hit enter. After some time, our Splunk should be completed. Now you might get a, hey, we can't find Python 3.7 site packages. That should be okay for now. But what you want to do here is I'll clear out the screen and let's change directories into our Splunk directory, which is under /opt/Splunk. I'll type in ll. And then if you take a look at the user and group permissions, we can see that it is currently set to Splunk. From here, we can change into our Splunk user by typing in sudo-u, Splunk, and bash. Now we are currently under our Splunk user account. Let's go back over to our Splunk directory, which again is under opt/Splunk. And we'll actually go into the bin directory, aka the binary directory. And if I type in ls, we can see a bunch of files here. The one that we're interested in is the Splunk, so this one right here. To run this, I'll type in ./Splunk and start. Go ahead and hold space until we finally get to the end here. They'll say, do you agree with this license? Type in Y for yes. And now you can set your admin username. So mine's going to be MyDFIR. Type in a password. And in theory, we should be able to access Splunk. But before we do that, I am actually going to exit this, clear out the screen again. And there is one more command that I want to run. So right now I am currently under the directory of Splunk, and I want to get back into the binary directory. So I'll just type in cd bin, and again, type in ls. Our files are here. What I want to do here is make sure that Splunk runs upon reboot. And to do that, I'll type in sudo./Splunk enable boot-start-user, and I'll point it over to the user of Splunk. Now, anytime my virtual machine reboots, it should automatically start up Splunk. Let's try and access it. I'll go ahead and minimize my PowerShell session here. Over to my web browser on my host machine, I'll open up a tab and let's type in 192.168.136.138, I believe. Let me just double check here. Yes, 138. And Splunk listens on port 8000, so you must specify that. And there you go, we can access Splunk. Type in the username that you created, which again in my case was MyDFIR, and we'll type in the password. And this is it. We are now logged into Splunk. There are some configuration changes that we need to do. And the first thing we want to do is click on Settings, head over to Forwarding and Receiving, click on Configure Receiving, and select New Receiving Port. We'll type in 9997, which is the default port, and we'll save that off. The next thing I want to do here is click on Settings, head over to Indexes, click on Got It, and we want to select New Index. The index name is going to be MyDFIR-project, and click on Save. And the last thing we want to do here is click on Apps, select Find More Apps, and we'll search for Windows Event. And this is the one we want, Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows. Click on Install, and then sign in with your Splunk account. The same account that you used to download Splunk, not the one that you created inside of Splunk, if that makes sense. Once we installed the add-on, go ahead and click on Done, and that is basically it. So let's go back over to our VMware, and I'll select the MyDFIR-Splunk, and from here, go ahead and take a snapshot, which again is under VM, Snapshot, and Take Snapshot. For this one, I'll just say Splunk-installed and take snapshot. The next thing we want to do is configure our Windows virtual machine to start sending its telemetry over to our Splunk. To do this, I'll open up my remote desktop session, which is this one right here. And just to make sure, I'll open up a command prompt and type in ping 192.168.136.138. I should get a response, and I do. Awesome. So that means that my Windows virtual machine can communicate with my Splunk machine. I'll open up Microsoft Edge, click on Start Without Your Data, Confirm and Continue, and then we'll type in splunk.com. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm already signed in on another browser. From here, we can click on Platform, go back over to Free Trials and Downloads, and the one that we want is the Universal Forwarder. So I'll go ahead and click on Start Download, and we want to select the 64-bit Windows 10 version. Click on Download Now, and once you've downloaded your Splunk Universal Forwarder, I am going to just copy this from my host machine into my RDP virtual machine here. Now, of course, you can just log in directly from your RDP session, but I am connected to a VPN and I don't want to disconnect. So I had to download the Universal Forwarder from my other machine and then transfer that Universal Forwarder over to this machine. So that is why you saw me do a lot of this extra stuff that you completely don't need to do unless you're like me and you don't want to disconnect from the VPN. But anyways, now that we have our forwarder, go ahead and double click that and we'll check the license agreement. We are currently using an on-premise Splunk Enterprise instance. Click on Next. For the username, I'll just say admin, and I am going to uncheck this generate random password, and instead just type in my own password. For the deployment server, we currently do not have one, so click on Next. However, for the receiving indexer, this is where you want to type in your IP address of your Splunk virtual machine. So this is 192.168.136.138. And if you recall, we configured the receiving port on our Splunk, and we listed this as 9997. Click on Next and Install. So that is why we did all of that configuration within Splunk before we started installing our forwarder. The universal forwarder was successfully installed. Click on Finish. I'll close out my command prompt here. And there is something that we need to configure, and that is under our PC, C drive, Program Files, Splunk Universal Forwarder. Click on Continue. Head into etc, go into System, and Local. So right now, we do not have what is called an inputs.conf file. And we need to create that in order for our Windows 10 virtual machine to start sending telemetry over to Splunk. Now, I will leave a link down below for you to download the same inputs.conf file. And also, it will include a bunch of free resources as well. So essentially, what you want to do here is head over to school.com/MyDFIR. And when you scroll down, you'll eventually find a free resource guide. And that free resource will look like this. It'll contain a PDF that has free cybersecurity training and projects. All you got to do is just scroll down until you find the SOC Automation Project 2.0. And under the Splunk inputs.conf file, you could just click on the hyperlink here. Again, you can find that under school.com/MyDFIR. But yeah, once you download the inputs.conf file, you want to paste it into the local directory. So right here where I'm currently at, and then go into Services, run as administrator, and we want to search for our Splunk service. So this one right here, our Splunk forwarder service. Double click that, go into Logon, and then select Local System Account. Click on Apply, and OK. Now, right click and restart. In theory, our Windows 10 virtual machine should now be sending telemetry over to our Splunk SIM. So let's head over to our Splunk, and I'll go into my apps, select search and reporting, click on skip, and I'll type in index equals MyDFIR-project. And I'll keep this as the last 24 hours. There you go, we see data. Click on my host, and that is my Windows 10 virtual machine. Click on source, we have the security log, application, system, and RDP. Now, just in case you don't want to download the file, so essentially this is what it looks like. We're sending our telemetry over to this index, which is MyDFIR-project, and these are the current log sources that are configured. But again, if you just want a nice and simple way for this to work, you can go ahead and download the free resource guide. Now that we have our Splunk setup, our Windows 10 virtual machine setup, and sending data over to Splunk, the next thing to do is to download and install N8N. You can grab the inputs.conf file for free by heading over to school.com/MyDFIR and downloading the resource file. Once everything is set up and Splunk is receiving data, the next thing to do is to download and install N8N. I'll go ahead and minimize all of this, and opening up my notepad here, I am going to take note of my N8N virtual machine IP address, which ends in .139. Open up a new PowerShell session, and let's SSH directly into our N8N virtual machine. So type in MyDFIR at 192.168.136.139. Type in yes, and we are good. To get started with our N8N, we are going to be using Docker Compose. And if I type in docker-compose, we are likely not going to see it. And if I type in docker, it will say, hey, command not found. But you can use sudo apt install docker.io to get it up and running. And that is what we're going to be doing. Sudo apt install docker.io. Type in the password, hit Y to continue. If for whatever reason you get an error like I do, where it says failed to fetch this URL. And if we go ahead and ping google.com, we should get a response. Now, if you don't get a response, then yes, double check your network connection and make sure that that's good. But if you do get a response and you still get this fail to fetch, what we can do is edit our source. To do this, I'll type in sudo nano /etc/apt/source. And let's hit tab twice to see what kind of options we have. We can see that there is a sources.list and a sources.list.d. The sources.list.d is the one that we want. So I'll type that in, hit tab twice again to see what kind of options we have. And we do have the ubuntu.sources. And that is the one we want. Go ahead and hit enter. And if you recall, the URI was this one that had trouble fetching, which is ir.archive. So I'll go ahead and just remove IR and just leave in the archive. And I know it's a little hard to see because it's blue text, but you'll have to forgive me here. After removing the IR dot, I am going to hold Ctrl X, Y to save, and enter. Clear out the screen. Now let's do a sudo apt-get update, and I'll do -y. And you know what, just to be safe, let's go ahead and upgrade our stuff as well. So I'll do an apt-get upgrade -y. And if we go ahead and type in Docker, it'll give us the same thing. So let's do sudo apt install docker.io. And now hit Y and enter. Sweet, it looks like we're good to go. Clear out the screen and let's type in docker-compose. And now it says, aha, it's not found, but it can be installed with sudo apt install docker compose. So let's go and install that. Perfect. Now if I type in docker-compose, we get something. Now we can start installing our N8N. First and foremost, we want to make a directory. So I'll type in mkdir and I'll name this as N8N-compose, just like so. And let's change our directory into that. Next, we'll create a Docker compose file. I'll type in sudo nano and let's do docker-compose.yaml. So I'll type in services, hit enter, tab N8N, let's do another tab here, and I'll type in image N8N io/N8N latest. This will go out and pull the latest image for N8N, restart always. And for the ports, I am going to manually assign these ports as 5678, which is the default port, by the way. And then environment, this is going to say N8N_host equals, and you want to put in the IP address of your N8N virtual machine, which is 192.168.136.139. Let's do N8N port. This one is 5678. For the protocol, I'm going to do HTTP. And eventually, this is what your Docker compose file should look like. The main thing here is just to make sure that your N8N host has your correct IP address. And taking a look at my file, I did notice that my volumes is not lined up with our environment. So just like that, now everything is lined up. Go ahead and hold Ctrl X and let's save that out. Now, if I do sudo docker-compose and poll, it should now go out and retrieve the latest version of N8N. Just in case, I will also put this in the free resource guide as well. That way you can just download it and don't worry about indentation. Now that that is done, let's do a sudo docker-compose and I'll type in up-d. Now, in theory, we should be able to access our N8N instance. Over to my host web browser, I'll open up a new tab and I'll type in 192.168.136.139. And this was on port 5678. Moment of truth, connection refused. All right, let's go back over to our PowerShell SSH session. And again, this is under my N8N virtual machine. Just to make sure, I want to see if any firewalls are in place. And to check, I could just simply type in sudo UFW status. And currently it is set to inactive. So why am I getting error connection refused? Well, if I type in LL, you might notice that there is an extra directory here called N8N data. And again, it's very hard to see because it is blue, but trust me, you do see a directory here. And the user and group is under root. Now, by default, if we run our Docker compose, it's not going to have the permissions to access our data. What this means is that we need to change our permissions. And I will do this by typing in sudo chown -R for recursive. And I'll type in 1000:/. 1000. And let's point it over to our n8n underscore data directory. Once that is applied, let's go ahead and type in ll again. And now we can see the user and group is now MyDFIR. Clear out the screen. I'll hit the up arrow key a couple times and let's do sudo docker-compose down. That way it just cleanly shuts everything down. And now let's go ahead and type in up-d once again. All right, let's try again. So this is my host browser. Go ahead and click on reload. Beautiful. We now have access to our n8n instance. How awesome is that? For the email, first name, last name, password, honestly, it can be fake. So I'll just type in test@test.com. For the first name, I'll just type in Steven, last name, MyDFIR, and the password. So this you must remember, otherwise you can't get back in. And I'll click on next. Go ahead and just select anything here and get started. It says, hey, you can get paid features for free. For now, I am just gonna skip this. And this right here is n8n. Great job on setting up n8n. Next, we'll create an alert in Splunk and ensure that our n8n webhook can catch it. Before we move on, we want to make sure to snapshot our n8n virtual machine just in case we end up breaking something. So let's go back over to our VMware workstation and make sure we select the correct virtual machine. Head over to VM and click on snapshot and take snapshot. I'll say n8n-installed. Take snapshot. And while that is doing its thing, we are going to move over to Splunk and create an alert. Over on my host browser, I am going to click into my Splunk here. And what we're going to do is just create a simple brute force alert. And the event ID under the Windows security event log that we are interested in is the event ID 4625, just like so. And if I hit enter, we're not going to get anything. Why is that? Well, it could be multiple reasons. One, maybe we didn't generate a failed authentication yet. Or two, we're using an incorrect field name. Well, let's test out our first theory. We know for sure that we logged in, so 4624 should in theory generate some events. But that doesn't as well. Is my time correct? It is last 24 hours, but we're still getting 0 events. That means that it is likely the field name that I'm using is incorrect. What do we do? Well, let me go ahead and remove that and let's rerun it. And from here, I am going to select the first event from the top and expand it. What I'm trying to do here is identify what is the field name that will contain our event ID/code. If I scroll down, I do see that there is an event ID here of 4672. And this is under the field name of event code and not event ID. What does that tell me? Well, I was using the wrong field name. So let's go back and type in event code. Now do keep in mind that this is also case sensitive. So your field names are case sensitive, whereas your field values is not. So make sure you remember that. Type in 4624 just as a test, and we do get results. Perfect. What about 4625? We do not get anything. But thankfully we did do our test earlier and we did get events. So because we see 0 events here, it just tells me that there are no failed authentications yet. Why don't we go ahead and generate some? Over to my VMware workstation here, I'm going to power on Kali Linux. And now that I think about it, you really don't need Kali Linux. I do want you to have it just in case. That way you can start experimenting on your own. But because of this particular test, what we can actually do is bypass Kali Linux altogether. And you might be questioning, well, what do you mean by that? Well, if I open up remote desktop from my host machine, I could just generate failed authentications. For example, I'll type in my IP address for my Windows 10 virtual machine, click on connect, and let's just type in a random password. Let's do this, I don't know, 5 times. Beautiful. Now let's go back over to our Splunk. And if we click on the search button here, we now have 5 events. Isn't that cool? So we can completely bypass Kali Linux. And if you are running low on resources, then yeah, I think that is a good idea because you don't necessarily need it, but it will enhance this lab so much more because you can actually do a lot of things, not just brute forcing your way in. You could also generate a backdoor using Kali Linux via Metasploit and then generate that kind of telemetry on your Windows 10 virtual machine. Seriously, you can do a lot of things in Kali Linux, but this isn't a Kali Linux project. So I am going to pause there. But now that we have our 5 events, what I'll do is just make this a little neater. So I'll hold Shift Enter and I'll enter in a pipe and I'll type in stats count by underscore time. And I want the computer name and also the username, which is right here. And we can see that the username is under the field name of user. Now, if you didn't install the application that we did earlier on Splunk, which again was called Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows, I believe, then you will not see this user field name. So make sure that you install that. I will also want the source IP address as well, src underscore IP, all in lowercase. Type in user, comma, src underscore IP. And this will break it down into a much easier view. Now that I have that, let's go ahead and click on Save As, Alert. And for the title, I'll just say test-brute-force. The description, you can put whatever you want. But for the time, I am going to run it on a cron schedule, again, just for testing purposes. And for the cron expression, I'll replace all of the numbers with an asterisk. This will tell cron to run this every minute. And again, it's just for testing purposes. Under the trigger actions, I am going to select add to trigger alerts. And also, I am going to select a webhook. So this one right here. For the URL, we are going to use our N8N webhook to catch our alert. So let's go over to our N8N GUI here. I'll click on Start from Scratch, click on the Add First Step, and we'll search for webhook. And this is the one we want. Make sure to change the HTTP method from GET to POST, and then copy the URL here. Head over to Splunk, paste in that URL, and hit Save. And then go ahead and select View Alert. Just make sure that it is currently enabled, which it is. And yeah, now we just need to be patient and head over to N8N. From here, select Listen for Test Event, and eventually our N8N instance should then catch our Splunk alert. After about a minute, we now see the output that N8N had caught. And if we take a look under the results, we have the time, the computer name, user, source IP, and the count. That is so cool. Finally, we'll start building out the automation inside N8N. Remember, you'll need API credits from OpenAI to make this work. Now, I wanted to pause here for a second and let you know that if you are interested in learning how to become a SOC analyst, I have created a dedicated SOC community, and inside of that, I have created what is called the 90-day SOC Accelerator. Essentially, you commit to 90 days and you should come out with enough skills to become a great SOC analyst. In addition to this, I have also created a SOC simulator where you get to get hands-on experience with enterprise tooling such as Microsoft XDR and Microsoft Sentinel. So if you ever wanted real hands-on experience to put onto your resume, this is it. You can learn more about this in the description down below. Let's get back to it. Now that we can confirm that we see data, let's go back over to our Splunk and make sure we disable the alert. Otherwise, it's gonna just keep spamming us with alerts every minute. Click on Disable and head back over to N8N. Go ahead and click on Back to Canvas. And the neat thing about N8N is that we can actually pin this particular output. That way, it will always use this output going forward. So we don't need to re-trigger the workflow, if that makes sense. Over on the plus icon at the top right corner, you want to search for ChatGPT, click on OpenAI, and we want to select Message a Model. And now it's going to ask you to create a new credential, and we'll have to input an API key. To do this, you want to head over to openai.com, hover over the login, and click on API Platform. Create an account. And once you're here, you want to select Start Building at the top right corner. Go ahead and create your organization name. And from here, I'll just say MyDFIR SOC project and generate API key. Do make sure you copy the API key and we'll paste it into our N8N instance. From here, I'll click on Save. And now we are connected to our OpenAI. However, we do need to purchase some credits. To purchase credits, you want to head over to Settings, which is this gear icon here. And then over to the left-hand side, you want to select Billing. From here, you need to add in your payment details. And then eventually, it'll ask you how much credit do you want to charge. I believe the minimum amount is $5, and that is more than enough for this project. But yeah, once you have your API up and running and you have valid credits, we should be able to utilize ChatGPT within our workflow. Now, to get started, we are going to change a couple of things here. First and foremost, I am going to select a model from this list. And honestly, you can select whatever you want, but for me, I am going to select GPT-4.1. And let's do mini. And under the messages, we do have a couple of different roles. So right now, there is a user, assistant, and system. I am going to select assistant, and this is essentially giving instructions on how ChatGPT should behave. Now I am going to expand all of this, and I'll go ahead and paste in a prompt that I created earlier, and it says this: act as a Tier 1 SOC Analyst Assistant when provided with a security alert or incident details, including indicators of compromise, logs, or metadata. Perform the following steps. 1 is summarize the alert. 2 is enrich with threat intelligence. 3rd is assess the severity based on MITRE attack. And finally, recommend next actions. You don't have to follow this step by step, but this is a prompt that I am going to be using for this particular project. I am going to scroll down just a bit and select add another message. And for the role, I am going to select system. And under this prompt, I am going to say format the output clearly. Return findings in a structured format such as summary, IOC enrichment, severity assessment, and recommended actions. Now, let's go back over to our canvas here. And what I'll do is I'll connect the webhook over to our message model, just like so. And if I double click the message, I will now see the webhook information on the left-hand side. I am going to select add another message, and this time it is going to be the user role. And within this user role, I am going to put in the alert name. And if I take a look on the left-hand side, which again is my webhook output, where does my alert name live? Well, it's under this right here. It's under the search name. What I can do is click on the search name and drag it over to our prompt, just like so. And at the bottom, we have our result. It says alert test-brute-force. That's exactly what I want. I'll go ahead and expand this so it's a lot easier to see. But the next thing I want is the alert details. Now, if we take a look at the left-hand side, our alert details is under the results. You could think that, hey, if I were to just drag this result, I'll see it, right? And not really. I mean, we do see object. What that means is that we need to convert this object into a string. And if you don't want to do that, I mean, you could do the hard way and just drag each and every field like so. But what happens if you don't get a brute force alert? What happens if you get a malware executed or malware detected alert? The field names is going to differ between different alerts, right? So instead of doing that, what we can do instead is use what is called a JSON.stringify. I know, the best name ever. Drag the results inside, like so. And do make sure you put a parenthesis before the JSON.results. And now I'll add in a comma, null, comma, 2, and close it off. Whoa, what happened there? So let me just quickly explain what happened. The null is essentially your replacer. So what to filter or modify the string with. And by using null, I am essentially saying, hey, don't filter or modify anything. Just give me everything under the result field. But let's just say that I wanted just the, maybe the user. So MyDFIR. How do I do that? Well, I could replace null with user. And now we only have the user. The right-hand side here is the output of my expression. But I don't just want the user. I mean, I want everything. So null. And for 2, these are essentially the spaces, the indentation level. By putting in 2 here, I am saying, hey, I want 2 spaces. Now, if you pay close attention to the right-hand side, if I replace 2 with 1, you notice how it removes a space. And again, if I put 2, it moves 2 spaces. So that's what this command does. That's pretty cool, right? Well, I thought so anyways. And I think we are good here. Yeah, let's go back to Canvas here. The next thing we want to do here is connect our workflow to Slack. Let's go ahead and open up Slack. And you want to create an account if you haven't done so already. Once we have created our account, we can just go ahead and click on next. What is the organization? I'll just say MyDFIR. Skip this step, skip, and start with limited free version. Now I am going to create a new channel, and I'll call this, let's call this alerts. And we can either change it to public or private. I'll just keep it as public for now. And now that we have our Slack up and running, let's head over to N8N. And over on the right-hand side, click on the plus button, type in Slack, and we'll select the first one here. What do we want to do? We want to create a message, which is right here. Under the message actions, we want to send a message, and it'll ask us for a credential to connect with. Let's click on that, click on create new credential. And if we don't know how to do this, well, let's go ahead and click on open docs, and we'll go through this. So right now it says using the API access token. To configure this credential, you do need a Slack account and an access token. Open your Slack API apps page. So let's go ahead and click on that. And I am signed in, right? That is what we did earlier. So I'll click on create an app. And if I go over to my N8N documentation, it says, hey, make sure you create it from scratch. Okay, from scratch. App name, this is going to be MyDFIR SOC project. Pick a workspace to develop your app in. Yeah, MyDFIR is okay. Create app. And here we go. We have our app credentials. But let's go back over to the documentation. And step number 6, it says in the left menu under features, select OAuth and permissions. Okay, select OAuth and permissions. In the scope section, select the appropriate scopes for your app. Refer to scopes for a list of recommended scope. Okay, we need channels read. So let me just go ahead and copy this. And scrolling down under the scope, I am going to select add an OAuth scope under the bot token. Paste that in, channels read. And if you take a look here, it says channels write is not available as a bot token. That's okay. Let's go on to the next one here, which is chat. And we'll just do this for all of them here. Once we have added all of the recommended scopes, let's scroll all the way up here. We could then click on install to MyDFIR. And I'll click on allow. Do make sure you copy your OAuth token. So this one right here, your bot user OAuth token. Once we copy that, we'll head over to our N8N and let's paste in that token here. Click on save and let's do a quick test. So under the send message to, I'm going to say channel, and under the list, I'll select alerts. And for the message text, I'll just say test, and let's click on execute step. And we get an error saying Slack error response, not in channel. If we head over to our Slack, we do see the MyDFIR SOC project app. And because of the error saying not in channel, what we can do is add that particular application into this channel. To do that, we can right-click the channel, select View Channel Details, and under the integrations, we could select Add an App. From here, you want to select the MyDFIR SOC project and click on Add. Great, now that this particular application is added, let's go back and try it again. And this seems like it worked. Let's go back over to Slack, and there you go, we see test. Perfect. Now, the moment of truth. Click on back to canvas. Everything is connected. We don't have any enrichment just yet, but that is okay. We just want to test. What I can do is go ahead and run the message model by clicking on this play button. This will go out and do its thing. And once that's done, we can now run our Slack application. And actually, that was a fail on me. I was supposed to remove this message text, and instead we'll put in the content. There you go. Now that should work. I'll click on execute step, go over to our Slack. How awesome is that? That's pretty cool. So let's take a look. It says a brute force alert named test brute force was triggered on the host, this host, involving the user, this user. The source IP address is that with a single recorded attempt. Was it really a single recorded attempt though? Let's see, what does my webhook say? Oh, it has a count of 1. Oh yes, that is true. It does have a count of 1. Okay. The reason being is because of my Splunk query here. And if I go back over to edit, open and search, we can see over to the count, it is 1. And that is because it is separated by the timing. Now, if I removed the time, just like that, we could then see it as 5. That is just an FYI in case you're wondering. Wait, Steven, didn't you do 5 failed authentications? The answer is yes, but because of the query that I made, it made it into each event, if that makes sense, based on the time. But anyways, this is a nice proof of concept, so it does actually work. ChatGPT is summarizing everything for us. For the IOC enrichment, I mean, it makes sense, right? We are using a private IP address, so it can't really do anything. Severity assessment, MITRE attack, it is initial access / credential access with the technique of brute force. The severity is low given only a single event and an internal IP recognized. Recommended actions, well, what does it say? Verify the login attempt, confirm whether the source is legitimate, monitor. Sorry, that is a tier 1 recommendation. Monitor for further brute force attempts. If multiple attempts are detected, X, Y, and Z. Cool. Now let's do some testing with an external IP address and IOC enrichment using Abuse IPDB. Because we are in an on-prem environment and I don't want to expose my VMs to the public, I am going to just do a slight modification. I'll open up my message model. Under the prompt, I'm just going to simply hard code a source IP. That way it kind of simulates an external IP trying to get in. And I'm not going to just type in any random source IP. What I'll do is head over to Abuse IPDB. And if I scroll down, we do have a recently reported IPs. So essentially IPs that were seen doing naughty things. I am going to select, let's do this one, the 80.94. And yeah, that is legit, all right? Let me go ahead and copy that. Head over to N8N. I'll just say the source IP is that. And now that I think about it, there might be some conflicting information here because there is a source IP field within the results. So what I'll do is only take in the computer name, user, and that's about it. So let me change the null to include only my user and my computer. And let's just do the time too. Might as well. So now we have our time here, the user, computer name, and a hard-coded source IP. I'll click on back to canvas. And at the bottom, you do see a branch that says tools. Let's click on the plus icon. And what we want is this HTTP request tool. And again, I am going to be using Abuse IPDB to perform our IP enrichment. What that means is that you will need to sign up for an account if you don't have one already. Once you have signed in, head over to API and click on Create Key. For the key name, I'm just going to name this as MyDFIR SOC Project API. Click on Create. Once you have your API key created, the next thing you want to do is check out their manual by clicking on this hyperlink here. Over on the left-hand side, you want to select Check Endpoint. And then when you take a look at the right, you have a curl command. So let's go ahead and copy that. And the cool thing about N8N here is that you can actually import the curl. So I'll just paste that in there. Click on Import, and it will automatically fill in the fields for you. That's pretty cool. If you take a look under the IP address field, there is a hard-coded IP. So what we want to do is just remove that and click on this icon over to the right, where it will say, let the model define this parameter. Essentially, we're letting ChatGPT say, hey, put in the IP address here. Scrolling down, there is a value that says your own API key. This is where we need to replace this with our API. Going back over to Abuse IPDB, let's go ahead and copy the API and we'll paste it in here. Actually, you know what? I shouldn't have removed that. Instead, what I'll do, just to make sure it works, let's just copy one IP address and let's paste that in there. Click on Execute Step and we should get something. Yes, we got the IP address there, the country code, the confidence score. So we know that our API is working as expected. Now, let's remove the hard-coded IP, and then we'll click on the icon so ChatGPT will automatically define it. Let's go back over to our canvas, and I am going to rename this particular tool to Abuse IPDB-enrichment, just like so. And for the message model, I'm going to expand the prompt that I gave for the assistant role. And you notice how it says enrich with threat intelligence. I am going to say for any IP enrichment, use the tool named Abuse IPDB-enrichment. And that looks to be good. Now let's execute the step. Fingers crossed, everything is good. Ooh, it looks pretty good. And if I take a look, it says the service is receiving too many requests from you. Now, if I take a look at the output, it's because there's a bunch of comments here. So what we can do is go back over to our Abuse IPDB. We'll change the max age in days from 90 to 1. That way it's a lot less data, and it won't eat up your tokens that much compared to, of course, the 90 days there. Now, if we go ahead and rerun this, it should be okay. And there you go. Everything works as expected. So if we go into our output, let's see, it says the source IP. Actually, you know what? This is a little difficult to read. Why don't we head over to our Slack? And then let's click on this play button here. And let's see what ChatGPT says. Looking at the IOC enrichment, the IP address is publicly routable. That is correct. It resides in Romania. The IP is not whitelisted and has a very high abuse confidence score of 100 out of 100. It's reported for SSH brute force attacks. And here are the recommended actions. That is awesome. And this right here is essentially the SOC Automation Project 2.0. Now again, if you are a member of the MyDFIR SOC community, we take this a step further by integrating VirusTotal for enrichment and also a ticketing system, along with the opportunity to allow our AI to talk to our data within our SIM. Now, if you aren't in the community, that is perfectly fine. It is completely up to you to go ahead and expand this project to make it even better. Congratulations on completing the SOC Automation Project 2.0. This was really fun to build, and I hope that you enjoyed working through it. If you haven't already, I do highly encourage you to add this onto your portfolio and even share it on LinkedIn. Feel free to tag me because I would love to see your work. If you're inside the MyDFIR SOC community, please don't forget about the 3 extra sections that take this project to the next level. There is ticketing system integration, VirusTotal enrichment, and connecting to an MCP server so AI can directly talk to the data. I mean, just check out this demo. It's amazing what we can do. Was there any suspicious activity within the time frame between September 10th, let's do 8 p.m. UTC, to September 10th at, let's do 11 p.m. UTC, under the index of MyDFIR project. And now it's just going straight to Splunk by searching it, correcting the time format, and now it's searching for potentially suspicious activities. Ooh, it's searching for suspicious PowerShell activity. And here we go. Based on my investigation, failed login attempt. Yeah, that is correct. We did do that. And there is PowerShell script execution. This is our UV installation. And there's also atomic red team activity. So it was able to identify that. There's multiple PowerShell events showing the execution of atomic red team. And it tells me the time. That is so cool. And it gives us the recommendations as well on what to do next. So investigate the source of failed login attempts, review the PowerShell script. That is awesome. That is it for the video, and I hope that you found this informative. If you did, let me know by hitting that like button and subscribe if you want to. Remember to stay curious and do things differently.